Hello, Don here. Welcome back to Iwaihime. I don't have a lot of time, so we're just gonna get right back into it with this. Right after they shattered the final doe skull, the villagers fell to the ground in shock. Something akin to black soot burst out of the wound on the doe's head like a geyser and shot straight up into the sky. The surroundings were filled with a stench, the likes of which none had ever smelt before. Even after it had covered the sky and blotted out the moon, the smoke-like substance continued to gush forward. All the villagers fell to their knees and trembled at the belated realization of their own sinful natures. This was wrath. Rukugaki Nihiko no Mikoto's divine punishment. Eventually, something like black feathers began to rain down on the village. Was it snow? No, it was pitch black soot falling like large snowflakes. Once it started raining on them, the villagers panicked and fled into their own homes. They believed they'd be cursed if they touched them. The village square was devoid of people. What remained were the gruesome corpses of deer hung over bonfires, their extracted entrails, pools of blood, skinned meat, and fur. The snow of soot piles on top of them all. It continued jutting out of the doe's head with the same ferocity as before. Everyone must have hoped it was all a bad dream. They timidly poked their heads out the next morning to find a sky so clear it made the night's event seem a fantasy. But no one was foolish enough to dismiss them as such. Not when the whole village was covered in a thick blanket of pitch black soot. Damn. Goddamn. It wasn't just the houses, the square, the fields, all were the same. Everything in the village was coated in soot, as if it were a painting someone had spilled ink all over. Eventually, the winds blew it away, but the stains left by the soot's filth didn't fade. Villagers were screaming in the square. No matter how much they pounded the sooty pelts, they never regained their former luster. They hadn't been smeared black by the soot. In the course of a single night, the golden pelts had changed into ordinary sooty ones. To make things even stranger, the deer they'd left hanging over the fires had been reduced to nothing but bones.
なんということじゃ。金の鹿の毛皮も肉も何もかもなくなっちまった。呪いじゃ。このすすは呪いのすすじゃ。
No shit.
みんな大変だ。タータを見てくれ。
Despite the long drought, a few crops had managed to grow. They'd been thriving strong just the day before, but now they'd lost all vitality as if the soot had sucked the life out of them. And there was no guarantee the same one happened to the villagers. Gradually, they began to feel ill in various ways. Their breath grew short and they developed headaches. Apparently, there were already those who had fevers or who couldn't even stay on their feet.
ミコ様、これはどういうことなんじゃ。やはりこれは六神様の呪いじゃろうか。わしらはどうすればいいんじゃ。
Getting free gift for being so fucking greedy.
ミコ様、どうかお助けを。私はまだ修行中の身ですゆえ、何もわかりません。ですが、ババ様なら、あるいは。
この巣は人間の体も弱らせるみたいだ。特に体力のないお年寄りたちがやられてる。
まさか、ババ様。
Her fears proved to be right on the mark. The old lady who had already been bedridden of fever was now at death's door. Her whole body was swelling and her gums were bleeding, and though she was still alive, she smelled like a rotten corpse.
ババ様すずや、わしはもうダメじゃ。
だが教えてくれんかね。ゆうべから妙に騒がしい、何か恐ろしいことが起きているのではないかね。
ババ様、実は。
ババ様は何と？
これは紛れもなく六神彦の命のたたりだと。
おお、なんということじゃ。わしらはどうなるんじゃ。死ぬんか、村は滅ぶんか。
ババ様がおっしゃるには、同じ呪いの伝承を西国で聞いたことがあるそうです。神の住まう禁足地を犯した者たちの村に呪いのすすが降り積もると、そのすすは大地を覆い土地を呪い、大きな災いを招いて村を滅ぼすのだそうです。
They couldn't abandon their village and live on. This wasn't a problem that could be solved simply by fleeing the cursed land. In this era, the death of a village meant the death of its inhabitants.
この村はどうなるんだ？どうすればいいんだ？
六神様の呪いじゃ。もうこの村は終わりじゃ。
みんな落ち着いて。取り乱してもいいことなんてないよ。
呪いじゃ。
俺たちは全員おしまいなんだ。
Just this commotion. The villagers were seized with fear and anxiety. Before long, they crowded around Susanome.
巫女様、巫女様、どうかお助けを。
どうか秘術でこの村をお救いくださいませ。
Doubt there's anything she can really do.
そんな、私にはそんな秘術はとても。
See?
博識なババ様ならきっと村を救う秘術もご存知のはず。村のためにどうかよろしくお頼み申し上げまする。
It wasn't even noon. Yet the old woman's face had aged 10 years since that morning. Mutsu could see the mark of death on her. She didn't have long. She was already in bad shape to begin with, and the cursed suit had only accentuated it.
ババ様、
すずや、何を聞きたいか分かっておるぞえ。
お頼み申す。どうか村を救ってくだされ。この通
身から出たサビじゃ。神を恐れぬ愚か者どもめ。
She's right. She barely had the strength to cough. Perhaps she understood she had limited breath left to spare.
呪い封じの秘術があるにはある。
Sealing.
本当ですか？
邪法じゃ。すすの呪いを制すには劣らぬほどに呪われし邪法がいる。
じゃあ法とは。
すずや、わしの荷物から本を。
ババ様、まさかあの本ですか？
What tome? It was a dreadful tome containing the black arts. But no matter how dark the magic, it could sometimes be used for good. However, it was a spell that could not be used arbitrary.
呪いのすすを生贄の身に封じ続けるという呪われた邪法じゃ。
No.
村をすすの呪いから救うには永遠に封じ続けるほかはない。神の怒りの代償としてこの村の者たちは永遠に邪法を受け継ぎ続けるのじゃ。村が滅ばずともあんたらのその苦しみは 少しは六神様を慰めるじゃろうって。
覚悟の上です。
そして神を恐れぬ愚か者たちがどのような災いを被ったか、子々孫々まで永劫に伝え続けるのじゃ。
They kind of didn't.
伝えます、伝えます。ですからどうかお助けを。
あんた字は読めるかい？
読めますとも。村で字が読めるのはわしだけです。
すすだきの秘術が記されておる。読み理解し、あんたが執り行うのじゃ。
The old woman tore out a page from the Tome of Black Arts and gave it to the mayor. She then handed the tome to Suzanome and ordered her to burn it. Finally, she whispered into Suzanome's ear.
すずや、よくお聞き。お前はまとめ、日が沈む前に。
喉を詰まらせたんだ。
Her face grew more purple, and then as suddenly as a puppet with the strings cut, she went limp.
しっかりしっかり。
Mutsu desperately hit her on the back, but it was too late. She'd been trying to tell Suzanome something in secret, but had failed to finish. The mayor glanced at Suzanome, weeping into her departed mentor's chest, and then turned his attention to the spell page.
これが呪いのすすを封じ込める邪法。
The villagers were surrounding the hut, their faces painted with fear. Once Mutsu and the mayor exited, they crowded around and clung desperately to them. The mayor raised his hand with a grim expression, urged them to quiet down. Once he was sure he got everyone's attention, he opened his mouth.
村を救う秘術を巫女様より賜ったぞ。
Those words stirred up the villagers, but the mayor quickly silenced them.
村尾さん、一体それはどのような。
Yes, how do we do this?
生贄を一人選び出さねばならぬ。
Lovely. I can guess who. Another commotion amongst the villagers.
静まれ！生贄は誰でも良いわけではない。若者から選ばねばならぬ。
The village youth were the most productive workers and therefore their families' breadwinners. Even if they weren't, no family would willingly offer up one of their own.
この儀式は明日の朝には行わねばならぬのじゃ。そう急に生贄を決めねばならぬ。
生贄はどうなるんじゃ。
命を奪うわけではない。呪いのすすのすべてをその身に封じ込めるのじゃ。
The villagers could be saved in exchange for making them sacrifice, carry the full weight of the cursed suit. But this ritual would not eradicate the suit. No, it would need to be sealed by a sacrifice for all eternity.
生贄になったものはどうなるんですか。
神の呪いを一身に受けるのじゃ。楽なことではあるまい。ここにはすすを封じた生贄は長くは生きられず、やがて衰弱して死ぬとある。
でも生贄が死んだら封じ込めた呪いのすすは。
生贄が死ねば封じたすすは再び解き放たれ、村を覆ってしまう。だから生贄は死ぬ前にこうなさねばならぬのじゃ。 さすれば生まれ来る赤子に再び呪いのすすは封じ込められるという。そしてその赤子もやはり若くして死ぬ。死ぬ前にまた子をなし、次なる赤子に受け継がせることで呪いのすすを封じ続けるのじゃ。
なんて恐ろしい。
That's what I thought. I
皆
know
の
who's.
者よ、これだけがこの村を神の呪いから救う唯一の方法じゃ。子々孫々まで永遠に我らはこの秘術を繰り返し続けねばならぬ。
The villagers burst into an uproar. Sacrificing someone was by all means better than letting the village be destroyed. But who would it be? If it could have been anyone, one of the elderly, without much longer to live, would have likely stepped forward. But it had to be someone young, someone who could have a child. Of course, one of the sickly people couldn't bear the curse. It had to be someone healthy. The villagers all fell silent. No family could afford to offer up one of their young. Even if they could, no one would volunteer to bear such a vile curse. But they had to make a decision by the next morning, no less. As the mayor had said, they had to hold a ritual to seal the suit away by then. The necessary preparations for that were all written down on the spells page.
みんな、村を覆ったすすをかき集めるのじゃ。各家の長たちはわしの家へ集まっておくれ。生贄を決めねばならぬ。
Lovely.
呪いの鈴。
Sound familiar?
それでこの土地の名前がすすだになったのよ。さっき鹿は神聖視されているからお年寄りは鹿の肉を食べないって言ったわよね。本当は神聖視じゃなかったの。呪いに怯えていたのよ。鹿の肉を食べたら呪われてしまうかもしれないってね。それが長い年月の中で改ざんされていって、すすだの地名からもすすが消え、今日のすすだになった。呪い元神社の名も岩井元神社に名を変え、過去を語り継ぐ伝承さえも書き換えてしまったのよ。
Yet you're told not to rewrite it?
でもどんなに過去を隠そうとしても神の怒りは永遠。邪法によって封じた呪いのすすが消え去ることはないの。
まさかその呪いのすすが現代にも。
そういうこと。それを受け継ぐ末裔の一人が私なの。
Oh. I wasn't expecting.
本家じゃないけれどね。いわば分家。本家に比べれば私の受けてる呪いなんて可愛いものよ。
Oh, so it's like a widespread kind of thing. For some reason, I thought I knew exactly who she meant when she mentioned the main family. Obviously, it's their shrine. Noroi-moto Shrine eventually became Iwaihime Shrine, and the ones who ran it were the Kurakamis.
じゃあ黒髪さんは。
そう。トエちゃんは1000年前の六神彦の命の呪いを現代に受け継ぐ呪われし生贄。
That explains the marriage now. That definitely explains the whole marriage. Even if the guy's a dick, it makes sense now.
トエちゃんが本家で私が分家。つまり私たちはものすごく遠縁の親戚にあたるというわけね。だから私にはわかるの。彼女が 六神彦の命の呪いでどれだけ苦しんでいるかわかるのよ。
Goddamn. Booming music, out of sync singing, microphone feedback, bursts of flashing lights. That large room in the karaoke club was full of audacious enthusiasm. The 10 members of Sho Kamenuma's delinquent group were clamoring about. Platters of fried chicken, mountains of french fries, and cups of overflowing drinks were lined up all across the table. It was too much for even 10 people. Not to mention too extravagant for students who should have had very little in the way of income.
翔さん、またジンジャーエール頼んでいいっすか？
Oh, okay.
あ、俺コーラにフランクフルト、あと漬物とか頼んじゃっていいっすか？
なんだよ漬物って、お前しびーな。おめえらも何でも好きなもん頼めや。金ならいくらでもあんだからや。もっとハゲチーノじゃんじゃん歌え。曲切らすんじゃねえぞ。俺はよ、このイカれた大騒ぎが大好きなんだよ。あの曲が切れた時の沈黙が耐えらんねえんだよ。
うっす、翔さん、ごちになります。
Sho always had 10,000 yen bills in his wallet. From time to time, he'd use that vast amount of money to treat his followers to parties at the karaoke club. But in actuality, Sho rarely sang. He would always bury the table with more food than he could eat and get his lackeys to go to town. To him, sitting back on the farthest sofa and looking out on it all with presence of a boss was the greatest ego trip there was. Crouching low at Sho's feet was none other than Toei. No doubt she was going along with this sick taste again. She licked his bare toes. Ugh, not this again.
つくづく翔さんの性癖ってマニアックだと思いますわ。
俺たちは高校出たら即結婚だとや。俺は紳士だからよ。それまではフィアンセのミサオはちゃんと守るわけよ。
あ、いや、イイナスケとかマジ羨ますよ。どうやったら今時イイナスケとか作れるわけっすか？
ああ？お前知らねえの？一目惚れだよ。こいつの一目惚れ。なんかよ、ある日突然黒髪家から俺ん家に電話があったんだよ。娘が俺に一目惚れしたからお見合いしてくんねえかってよ。なあ、おめえの一目惚れなんだよな。
はい、翔様。
すげえ、そんなことってマジであるんすね。
まあ正直会うまでは割と浮かれてたんだわ。何しろ黒髪家ってこの辺りじゃ結構知られた金持ちなんだろ。
うち親が不動産屋やってんすけど、黒髪家はマジパネっすよ。この辺りで商売やるときは黒髪に挨拶がねえとシャレになんないって言ってましたもん。
だよな。そんな大物の金持ちのご令嬢が俺に一目惚れってんだから、そりゃ浮かれるだろ。で会ってみたら頭のネジがぶっ飛んでるイカレ女だったわけだけどよ。
どうか亀沼翔殿とのご婚約を切にご検討願いたい。
My folks were at a total loss for words, same one for me. Who wouldn't be with those people asking me to marry their daughter?
実は娘は遺伝的な持病があり、長くは生きられません。あれの母
So
も
that's
祖
how
母
they
も
spin it.
30を迎えるまでに亡くなりました。
They spin it as an illness and not a curse.
トエもおそらくはせいぜいあと10年ほどしか生きられないでしょう。
When I heard that, my first thought was, give me a break, man. That's some shit out of a crappy TV show. Basically, their daughter wouldn't last long, and so they wanted me to marry her before she kicked the bucket because she'd fallen for me at first sight. I get the picture. Sounds like an interesting story, yeah, but in reality, it felt like a total pain in the ass. Her comments were way too formal for my taste. I loved my freedom, and I'd be damned if I were tied down. That's what the kind of guy I am. You all know that, right? Yeah. So I told Toei's old man how it was. I don't get weird dealers, but it sounds like a real pain, so I'll pass. But I ain't dumb. I worded it way nicer than that. Sure, of course. But even then, he wouldn't give up. He said if I got engaged to his daughter, there'd be bucket loads of money in it for me. I'm talking hundreds of millions of yen here. My folks and I couldn't believe it.
もちろん、翔殿の大切な人生をお借りするのです。これくらいは当然と思っております。トエが亡くなるまでの間、一切の金銭的なご迷惑はおかけいたしません。
He brought out a big ass attaché case stuffed with bills. My folks looked like they were about to pass out any second. I couldn't even think straight. The power of money is some real shit. The girl I'd written off as some whack job suddenly looked like the prettiest girl in the world at the moment. She'd be a fine piece of ass as long as she kept her mouth shut. On top of that, I only had to put up with her for a few years till she bit it. All that money would be mine, and all I had to do was play along with this guy's bizarre engagement game. At that point, my mind was completely made up.
もしご承諾いただけるのでした
Joe
ら、
really is an ass.
当方からお願いしたいことがございます。婚礼の件です。高校を卒業と同時に直ちに婚礼を挙げていただきたく存じます。そして生まれた最初の子を当家の養子にいただきたいのです。
It all clicked together at that point. So what the Kurakamis really wanted was a successor. Their daughter would die without having a kid if she kept sitting her ass around, and they couldn't let that happen. So they decided to capitalize on her love at first sight and came up with this messed up proposal.
んで、俺は速攻 OK したってことよ。こいつは何が何でも後継ぎを産まなきゃならねえんだ。俺には逆らえねえ。俺は使い切れねえ小遣いで遊びまくり。んで卒業したら、こいつの結婚ごっこに付き合ってよ。ガキができるまでやりまくりよ。何しろガキは向こうが引き取るってんだ。俺には何の後腐れもねえ。
すっげえ話っすね。
一目惚れバンバン罪だぜ。イケてる面に生まれてきたことを親に感謝しねえといけねえな。
Yeah, it's not that. Nah, it. Man, not really.
なあ、トエ。お前、俺のことが好きで好きで仕方ねえんだよな。
はい。初めて翔様をお見かけした時から、トエは翔様の虜です。
マジでははイケメンはつれえわ。
So jeered as he knocked up some spit. Hopped up some spit.
なめろよ。
Oh, God. Love of.
一目惚れした翔様の唾だぞ。ありがたくなめられるよな。
Toy nodded and crouched before Cho spit and licked it off the floor. Yeah.
おいしいよな。
Bring me back to the first chapter and how.
はい。
How the first chapter made me very uncomfortable.
おいしいです。
Cho cackled and basked in self-satisfaction. His followers gulped at this perverted scene.
あ？曲を切らすんじゃねえよ。
すいません。おい、リモコン取れよ。
His followers hastily resumed the party. Cho clicked his tongue as he watched Toei continuing to lick the floor.
てめえなんざ人間じゃねえ。犬だ。
He kicked Toei with his heel. The Japanese doll she was carrying fell to the floor at that moment. She frantically picked it up. Her father had made one other request to show that he couldn't comprehend for the life of him. He asked for him to overlook the doll she always carried and not ask any questions about it.
その人形様には嫉妬しちまいそうになるぜ。
So that's where we'll end this video for Iwaihime. I hope you enjoyed, despite how disturbing that the last part of the video was. So yeah, subscribe if you're new, check out other videos I've done, and see you next time. Bye bye.